Hello everyone, welcome to day 6 of India. While today did have some minor annoyances, overall I would say that today was a very good day. Today we were focused on the artisans. We were going to be going into a village nearby Jaipur called Sangrahir. We were going to see people working with crafts, which was pretty excited. We were also told that we needed to eat a big breakfast before we went because we were going to be in the village for a long amount of time and there was no good place to get lunch around there. In order to have a filling breakfast before I went, I made sure to fill up on more of the pastry things. I did get some of the plain curd like I often do, and I tried this shake. I forget what the flavor of it was now, but it was pretty good. I also did wake up with a state of concern this morning. I mentioned in the last video, my period started yesterday. So I dealt with it immediately last night by going down to the lobby to request where I could buy pads, and they had some pads sent up to my room, and I'm very grateful for them doing so. When I got them, I only had 3 pads in the thing, and I knew that today, as it was the second day of my period, would be heavy day, and I would need to have some backup pretty soon because 3 pads don't last very long. I also had a bunch of tampons with me, but they are not my preferred method of dealing with the period. Also, tampons do not hold a lot of blood compared to a pad. A pad holds more. So when the head of our tour group ended up asking me how I was this morning, I did mention that my period started last night. Like, I would need to ask where to get pads, and she was like, well, you're going to find that you're going to be with a bunch of aunties here. We're going to be keeping an eye out for you, which, as it turns out, throughout the day, she was right. So I ended up packing all the tampons, and before we went into the village, I did put a couple tampons in my pocket, and I packed one of the pads there as well in case that needed to get changed. But hopefully the pad and tampon will be a double barrier and I could enjoy the arts with relative ease. Got myself stuffed on breakfast, and then we got on the bus and we headed to Sangrahir. The bus drove us as far as it was able. The bus was not able to take us all of the way because it drove us through the opening gate, but once it made it through the gate, there was some sort of building or something in the way, and the bus could not make a turn safely. So the bus had to back up. We had to walk the rest of the way. Those who had trouble with walking had cars available to them, but most of us chose to walk. As I'm walking, I see that it was pretty good that we didn't take the bus in there because there was one point where the pothole was literally like 2 feet deep, and I was like, oh, that could have swallowed the bus up. But also the roads were a bit thinner. It was interesting just walking through the town. I guess I was expecting to be more rural than it was. It still felt like it was part of the city. They pointed out a temple to us. I think it was the oldest temple in Jaipur, maybe? It was like 400 years old or something like that. We also walked by a lot of cows, and we walked by some goats. We got to see some goats drink water from a trough, and they were really cute. And we walked down the street that we were told had factories all over the street. This particular place was home to a lot of manufacturing. We were being led there by the person who ran the factory. I think his name was Mr. Amen. So where we were headed to today, had plans to do 2 different crafts. They were both done in the same thing. One was block printing, and the second was acantha stitching. We dealt with the block printing stuff first, and we walked into this courtyard where there were a bunch of machines, and it turns out before they do the dye process with the fabric, they have to wash the fabric pretty strenuously. A lot of yarn, when it's made, it's going to be made into fabric. It's going to get coated with a substance called sizing, and sizing is a starch, and it makes the yarn thicker and smoother and more stiff. They coat the yarn with the starch. That way, when they weave it, since the yarn is more straight, it's going to be more flush against each other, and that's how you get the really high thread count sheet, or the fabric that has the really straight grains with the weaving. It helps get all those strings really close together without the weave being too loose. However, sizing does make it more difficult for other materials to be absorbed by the fabric, like the dyes that they use. They have to wash the sizing out so that way the dyes can take to the fabric after it is there. So they have these machines and they do it outdoors. They can leave these machines outdoors all the time because there's monsoon season. So I guess it's okay dealing with the rain because you're using a machine that works with water. But also the weather's always warm enough even in the winter to deal with this. They choose the water from this particular area for the dyes. The reason why they have the factory in this particular area in India is because of the water that's around. The water has a lot of chemicals in it that, while not necessarily healthy for humans, are amazing for bringing out the dye colors or helping to wash the fabric, things like that. So the water has a lot of fluoride. It also has a lot of copper, alum, and iron. This also gets a lot of the dyes naturally. So the natural dyes that they often use are from minerals. They're not necessarily from plants or flowers, although they can make it, but most of their dyes are made from minerals. Alum results in a red. Iron results in a black. It's like molasses, iron, and the iron is present in a used horseshoe, and the water produces a deep dark black. And then they can also mix those colors together to get a sort of brown, like a mixture between the red and the brown and the black. So the original dye colors for this used to only be like 2 to 3 colors, but now they have the ability to mix. They have since added synthetic dyes to their collection. Their synthetic dyes are ecologically tested. They have been deemed safe for the environment. It holds up to rigorous testing, although I forget what the testing is at this point. They are able to create any shade that is from the Pantone book. If you're not familiar with the Pantone book in the art world, Pantone has a bunch of shades that if you have a particular color in mind, you can see if they have that particular color and what that color's name would be. So they can make any Pantone shade at this point. But anyway, back to washing all the sizing out. The yarn gets the sizing at a different factory, gets the starch. It's different from the factory that weaves it. They have the fabric sent to them from another factory. And then once it's washed out for the appropriate amount of time, they have a whole staircase area and they can hang their fabric out in the wind. From there, we went into the place where we could see the block printing, and we were told about the process of the block printing. And how it works is they have these huge long wooden tables, and you can tell lots of things have been done on these wooden tables because they were all inked up, but they pin the piece down on the table. The pins go straight down into the table, and the fabric that you're dyeing on is flush with the table. It's super tight. And then they prepare the dyes. When they prepare the dyes, they have a setup that's very similar to silk screening, printmaking, where you have a sort of screen that has the ink, and they have this fabric that is absolutely soaked in the ink. And then they have a scraper that prevents the ink from puddling up. So you have a bigger version of a stamp. And with this bigger version of a stamp, you can just lightly tap the block with the color, and then you can put the block on the color. While they were setting it up for us, we could see one guy in the process of dyeing a whole ream of fabric, and he had already gone over with the first layer of red flowers, and then he was going over with a second in a different shade of red, and just doing it slightly off center or off kilter, so that way there's a shadow effect, and it was pretty good. And you could tell he was just in a rhythm. It was very meditative for him. You could also see there was the dyes on the ground. There was a smell to the dyes. They were mixed with gasoline to help give them that runny consistency and to help them move smoothly along. The gasoline was acting as a sort of turpentine or a solvent that, like in paint, they use a solvent to make the paint thinner. The ink was definitely the consistency of making ink. Then they had these wooden blocks. These wooden blocks are carved with very intricate designs. And often we were given blocks where you have the same design overall. They're all meant to work on the same design, but they color different parts of the stamp. So that's how you get the block printing overlap that way. You start with your outline. That's usually the darkest color. And then you get other colors and you line them up throughout. Like you line up the stamp with the part that makes sure that they go into the proper part. There was one person in the factory who was very good at explaining. I think his name was Suman. He could speak some English, but he also was very good at just showing what needed to happen. But the whole process, you don't really need to speak English to see how to block print. But what he would do is he would take the stamp, he would just give it a light tap in the thing. He would place it carefully on the fabric and then maybe give it a light whack. It was a light whack with the outline. But then when it came to the later steps, it was literally just lining it up, giving it a light press, and then taking it off. And then he had us try several of them. So he had several people do the outline, and then he had several people do the stuff inside. I did one of the stamps that was inside. It was really good to see everyone else get a chance to try this because I was the only one from the group who got to try it yesterday, but everyone else finally got a chance to try it today. After the general demonstration where we could see the flower come to life, he had a whole bunch of different layers of flowers. It took 4 things to make it work. We were told to go stand by one of the squares of fabric that was set up. And I was originally standing by one setup of fabric, but then Suman told me to go stand by another one. So it's like, okay, whatever. I did ask if they had fish or frog stamps, but he said no. So I just went with the flower that he gave me for that. But what they did was they started by having the border put on. So they made a square and we were to work inside the square. Someone else came around with a straight edge and a pen and he just drew the lines so that way the pattern would be square. Then they gave us a border and we were to ink the border. The ink that was used for the border was a runnier ink than the ink that was used for the stamps, which I found out because when I tried to use it for the outline, Suman saw it and went like, oh, no. My stamps were a little bit more runny when I tried to use the border ink, but then once I switched to the same color but more finely refined ink, the lines came out a bit better. I got a little bit overly ambitious with my design. I decided to fill up the entire fabric. Other people had a lot more space in between theirs, but I figured if I kept the gaps between my main stamp pretty small, it'd be easier to make sure that I could get a straighter looking pattern. I did have a bit of a slant on part of it, but I don't think you can really tell. Yeah, I stamped the border and you have to re-ink after every stamp because otherwise it's too faint and you can't ink it too much. You have to just light press. I was sharing the ink colors with other people and if you're right next to it, it's just like boom, 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 boom. But if you're sharing it with other people and the other people are far from you, then most of your time is actually spent walking back and forth between the ink pot and your piece. Fortunately, I am young. I was quite enjoying the process of doing the block printing, so just a little bit of background about me. When I was younger, I spent several summers going to art camp. It was literally called summer art camp, and all we did was art. You chose either painting or sculpture to start off with, and then you would go for 2 weeks, just a day camp. You wouldn't sleep there overnight. And then half of your days would be dedicated to either painting or sculpture, unless you ever ended up opting for another craft like pottery or enamel, which was a different thing, could only be done while you were there that week. The other days would be taken up with printmaking and drawing. So I've had a lot of practice with printmaking in my elementary school days, and I can tell you that what I did today is skill-wise loads better than I ever did at that summer art camp. I was definitely more, I'm having fun doing this, but I'm not very good with it. I have a lot more training in how to create artwork now. When I was in the process of adding green to the leaves and I was lining it up, I did the lining up process even though it was a little bit off kilter for me for some of them. I had done part of the bottom and then I got moved around to the top and then suddenly I still had the middle to do. And Suman came by, he's like, oh wait, I have an idea. So he had me not dip any more of it in green, but then fill it in with other colors. So he brought over the yellow and then he brought over the blue and then he brought over the red. He would just point to certain ones as like, put yellow in that one and that one and that one, and they were all spread apart. Someone else tried to come over and give input into it, but Suman was like, no. It's like too many cooks there. From there, I had to fill in the flowers, so he brought over the pink for the flowers. I didn't know if he told me to put them all or if he wanted a particular pattern, but I made my own pattern for it. I asked his opinion after I'd filled half of them. It's like, do I need to add any more? It's like, no, it's perfect. I got to see everyone's things and lots of people did really well. Other people had other employees go and stamp their work for them. I was the one who pretty much stamped the majority of my work. There isn't a weird stamp on mine. But after we were done, we had to sign our work. That way it could be returned back to us when it was all dry. And I was told in the middle to take a break because there was tea and there was samosas. So I tried the tea. The tea was a little bit too hot, but it did taste good. The samosa was technically a very good samosa. It was just a little bit too spicy for me, but I could tell it was a very good samosa. I had like half of it. I did it right when I was still working on my piece and I was kind of itching to go back to my piece. The good thing was they also had water for us. They had plenty of water for us, which became very useful because it was hot. It was very, very hot. Also, I had forgotten that I was wearing what I consider relatively good clothes to inking stuff to a very messy art form, and I didn't want to get my t-shirt dirty. I mean, I really like this t-shirt, but I was wearing the thrift store shop shirt and I buttoned it in front of it, which is not how I typically wear that shirt at all, but it worked because this shirt stayed stain free. Later on I realized I only got like some stains here and I got some stains on my hands, but as far as I'm concerned with the messiness scale, I did amazing. I think my parents are going to be thrilled to find out that I didn't stain any clothing with that unintentionally. Yeah, this is my piece. I'm not going to unfold it all in this video. I'm probably going to save some of it for when I talk about everything I got in India in one video, but you can see like that's the border. And then we have some of the designs here. So very pretty. After we were done, they started unpinning all of them and then they draped them outside to dry. So they started draping them over the motorcycles and trees, and I have no idea where mine ended up, but it was absolutely delightful to see them there. We were also offered services of the washroom. We were told that it was an Indian toilet, so that meant squat toilet. It's the first time I've used a squat toilet here in India. I do get excited when I see squat toilets as options. I wasn't going to use that other one that I saw in the Gandhi Memorial because there was no door, but here there was at least a curtain. But yeah, there was a curtain. There was no lock on the door. And when we went in, there was no place to wash our hands. I did bring a bottle of water because it's like my period's coming on. I'm probably going to end up getting blood stains somewhere. I want a way to wash it off. And I couldn't really see in the door if there was any place to get running water there. I didn't change the pad then, but I did change my tampon, and it's a lot easier to change the tampon when you're in a squatting position. But I really didn't have a choice because the tampon came out and landed in the squat toilet, and it's like, is this flushable? There wasn't really a way to flush the thing. There was a bucket, but I couldn't see where the water thing was, but fortunately I brought water in with me, so I washed it down. I got a wet wipe to work as a hand sanitizer when I went back in from one of the ladies in the group. And at this point, it's like, oh, this is heavier than I was expecting it to be. After we were done with that, we went upstairs to do the second half of the workshop, which was kantha stitching. And two women were brought in to teach us about it. Unfortunately, I forget their names. It's only their third or fourth class, and they've never taught a class as big as us before. And there's 20 some of us. They usually teach a class of just 8 to 10 people. So it was a learning experience for them too. Kantha stitching, as I found out, is you have an outline, or they have the block printing, and then you stitch over it. So they print on the fabric already, and then you have the stitches already there. And it's a running stitch. Instead of going like up, down, you try to do the needle do most of the up and down for you, and you can just pull it through and keep the stitches around the same size. And then when you come back along the thing to fill in the gaps, instead of filling in the gaps directly, you stagger them. So you go like up and down. It looks like some steps or a bit of a chain type of deal. And there are different stitches with kantha embroidery. So we only ever really did the outline. We didn't talk about the fill-in stitches as much, although they did end up having to split us into two groups so everyone could see. I think it's a satin stitch that you fill it in with, but you do it with a contrasting color with the block print. So that way you can see the colors that were dyed underneath. And we were told like, hey, you can do kantha stitching on your thing that you dyed today, which I don't really see myself doing that for this particular piece, but I do think it's a cool idea. Yeah, this was mine. I was not the first one to get there. I was in the second half, so all the elephants were gone by the time I got there. And then there's only flowers and blank ones. And also ones that had patterns all the way that were just geometric, and it's like, I'm not really vibing with any of this. I eventually just went with the flower. It was light blue, and then I got pink DMC floss. It's like, oh, let's make trans flag colors. But then they came around with more designs. And then I saw someone walking around with the signs and he showed me this one and I just knew it had to be mine. So I took this one, which means I had already threaded the needle to start stitching on the first one. So I had to go get new thread and then I had to restitch it. So when I came around, I was somewhat behind. They asked like, do you need help? I was like, no, I just restarted. But yeah, this is a DMC floss, the type of floss that people often use for like needlework, needlepoint, cross stitching, general types of fabric embroidery like that. And we had to split the ply in half. DMC floss comes in a 6-ply string and we were told to split it in half, so our string is 3-ply wide. So I just had a nice time just sitting there and stitching, and we were in a well-lit place. The temperature was perfect outside. At this point, I told our tour guide and the head of the group that I was going to need to get something, and I figured I should mention in front of him so he could make plans to stop somewhere. Our head of the tour group ended up having to tell the tour guide that I meant like feminine pads, which he took that relatively seriously. It's like, okay, we'll stop by a medical shop, like once he realized what I needed. And I don't feel bad about the whole bus knowing, honestly, or men knowing at this point. Our tour guide has a 6-year-old daughter, so I just consider this a practice for him and what he's going to have to do in a couple of years. But the moment that people realized I had my period, they were offering me access to pads and tampons and things like that throughout the day, and it was very, very nice gestures on their part. I had stuff that could last me through the day, but I knew like after today it wouldn't be enough. After the canvas stitching, we ended up taking a bit of a walk. Those who were driving drove to a certain point, but the rest of us took this bit of a shortcut walk, and we ended at a spot where there was a burnt out bus. It was not our bus, but the bus came and picked us up, and we drove the rest of the way to the store of the person whose factory it was. So we went there and we could end up buying block stitches. I saw the holistic store and I was wondering if that was the pad store, but then when I was looking at the times, I realized that it was closed at the time that we were there. But then we went in and we got access to all sorts of fabric. So I got some stuff. They did have clothing, and I did try looking for pants because I thought, well, if I bleed through my jeans, I'm then playing with light colored pants. I don't really feel like doing that. So what if I get other ones? And I mean, I did get these 2 other pants. They are still light colored, but even though we are going into winter, I still do enjoy good shorts. I really love pants as a clothing item anyway. And I got my sister's Christmas present. It's a bag. She loves bags. She'll find some sort of use for this. And it has pops of red on it. So I think she'll enjoy that. And then I found some fabric. I just impulse bought the fabric, but I figured I'd give this to my mom and ask her to make something cute. Got her like 2 meters of it. The smallest amount they sold was 2 meters, which was strange. But yeah, I have something there. It was nice to just get some impressive prints. It was a struggle to find the pants. The pants were mixed in with the shirts and you really had to go looking for them. Someone else found a pair of pants for me, but I wasn't crazy about the color. Then once I saw this, I was like, same design, different colors. It's like, that's why I was holding out. It was also right next door to a pottery shop. So I assumed they were artisans that were selling very unique tiles. A lot of it was the blue pottery, and they also had lots of loose tiles and beads on the ground. And I found one tile that I thought was absolutely amazing. It's like, look at that little fish. So cute, right? And this tile's gonna be more of a decorative piece. But then we came to what would be an annoyance for the majority of the places that I would go to for the rest of the day, which there's not really much I can do about it. There wasn't really much I could do about that situation, but we've been told consistently throughout the trip that India will accept cards everywhere. That is not the case. That is not the case whatsoever. I would say my biggest regret around my trip to India, which is not the trip itself. This trip is absolutely worth it. But my biggest regret is that I did not bring enough cash with me to change. I thought if I changed $40 US that would be enough, and it was not. Especially if you're going to market-like areas or just sightseeing or whatnot. You can't change it into rupees until you enter the country, and you can't bring rupees out of the country because I'm not sure it's backed up by other currencies, or there's something going on there. But people want cash and they just don't have an electronic database. So when I wanted to buy the tile, they asked for 100 rupees. I only had 30 rupees in cash. So one of the other ladies in the group happened to overhear this, and she asked me how much I need. So I said 70, but then she ended up paying for the whole thing. And I'm grateful to her. And I had this cute little tile that I could show you that represents the different artworks that I've seen in India. Like a cute little fish. I'll have to give it a name. From there we went to lunch. So they found a restaurant nearby. The food served in the restaurant was good, but it was a little bit chaos personified, which, to be fair, India itself always works on a little bit of chaos. It can't help working on chaos, so I shouldn't be surprised if there was some chaos here. That's just how things work. We ended up going to this restaurant. It was called a selfie restaurant, and it was fine dining. Although for fine dining, it was a relatively cheap restaurant. I literally found out that my meal would have been like $5-ish. But there are several things in play. One was that it was the first time that Craftours had been to this restaurant, and it was the first time that this restaurant had had a foreign group in it. And the waiters were scared. They did not speak English. They did have the menus in English. We could understand the menus pretty well. But the waiters themselves did not speak English, and they were afraid to speak to us. They were trying their best. I guess when you're not used to people not speaking your language, you might also not be used to the techniques that someone will use to try to make themselves understood. Because my gut instinct was, okay, I'm going to pick up this menu, and I'm going to point to exactly what I want. And I did that, but they still wanted to hear me say it too. Something also happened with the order. Our tour guide had to really push to make sure that we got our food. Something must have happened in my order because I had to give it again in order for my order to be received. I was one of the last people to get food. One person I'm not sure ever received her food at all. She did receive her drink though. They saw the cold coffee with ice creams, and several people had that, and apparently it was very, very good. While I was waiting for the food, a couple other people from the table offered to let me try their food. So the lady sitting next to me had 2 different types of dosa. One was a butter dosa, and another one was cheese dosa. I tried them, and they were both very good. There was a spring roll from one of the other ladies, and that spring roll had some kick to it. But I ended up asking for rice, so it's CEERI. Which I found out was not spicy. I found out if something has masala in the menu, it is spicy. Masala is a spice. So I'm glad for that thing. I was thinking about getting a paneer, but the paneer I was thinking about had masala. It's like, ooh, do I really want that spice? I also got some plain naan. So just in case the sahiri was not what I was expecting it to be, I would have some sort of safe food to mitigate any spice. They had some mocktails on the menu, so I ended up ordering one called Blue Angel. It's like, I don't know what it's going to be, but we're going to find out. The thing that was strange about this menu was that it told you the names of the things, but it didn't tell you what was in it. Which, when you're not familiar with what Indian food is to begin with, it's very confusing. You're just guessing. It's a crapshoot. It's like, okay, we're going to see what this thing is. There were a bunch of desserts that I was willing to try, but it was like, we're not going to get it in this particular instance. It'll make it longer. But when it was time to pay, they came around the card reader, and the card reader did not work. It did not accept any cards, and that was annoying. It's like, you need to pay cash, and it's like, I only have a card. So the tour guide offered to pay, but then one of the other ladies in the group offered to cover my meal, and I was like, oh, thank you very much. Then they never came around with the bill, so it's like, we know how much the individual items cost. We don't know how much the taxes are, so they ended up leaving like 1,500 rupees on the table to pay for 3 meals, because the person who paid for my meal was also paying for her mother's meal. Our tour guide ended up paying for several meals, but we're not sure whether the people saw the rupees on the table before they printed out the check, so it got paid somehow. It was nerve-wracking for me. But I'm very, very grateful that it was taken care of and that I had people looking out for me. After lunch, we went to the paper factory. It was called Salim's Paper, and it is the biggest factory in Jaipur. And considering if we end up walking through it, then it's not a very big factory. I would say it's about half of the size of the factory that I worked at when I was another version of me. But we first walked into the room where they shows the first step, which is they make the slurry for the paper. All of this paper is made from recycled material. The stuff that they showed us was 100% cotton. They've also used t-shirts as well, like recycled t-shirts. They will cut it up into really fine, small little bits. And then they toss them into the slurry machine, which it goes around for 4 to 5 hours. And at the end of that, it's going to become paper pulp. From the point where it goes to paper pulp, it's going to go into one of two places. So it's either going to become a machine-made paper or it's going to become a handmade paper. If it's handmade paper, there's this vat that's filled with the slurry, and they put a screen in it. They dip the screen below the water, they shake it around a little bit, and then they lift it up. And then the slurry sits on the screen, the water falls back down. Then they put a fabric over the top of it, and then they flip it over so that way the paper is on the fabric and gets off of the screen. And then the paper dries that way. If it's a machine-made piece of paper, the slurry gets fed into the machine, and the machine feeds it through a roller where it presses the paper, and then it comes out. So we saw someone who was collecting the pieces of paper that came out. He took it off the machine and put it in a pile, and then there were two ladies there who were straightening up the pile. It was good to see that the factory was co-ed, because we have been seeing a lot more men than women working, although that's the case in most factories that I've seen at this point. From there, the paper goes into a presser. The paper is still wavy. It's still a little bit wavy and rough at this point. So they take the paper and they stack the paper in between these black sheets of some material that is not paper, that's harder than paper. It's either rubber or metal or something like that. And they feed it through a press, and it literally goes in, then out. And when it comes out, the paper looks more polished. The paper that we were seeing being processed by the machine was going to be turned into file folders. When you go to a filing cabinet and then you look at the covers that hold the papers inside the filing cabinet, they were making those things. The paper can also go to a couple different locations from there. If there's a design that goes from the paper, they can screen print it. We saw someone screen printing a bunch of logos on pieces of black paper. They can also put a paper in a machine that causes a bit of a die cut. The best equivalent is it's a large Cricut machine. It's not the brand Cricut, but it's the same sort of basic principle. They put the paper in it and they press it, and then the paper gets die cut. So it has all these different shapes that the paper can become, and then the paper gets made and gets cut to those shapes. So we were seeing paper get cut into a bird, and it was a peacock, and we were shown the finished peacock a little bit later on. It was not an origami thing because there is some glue involved, but yeah, there was some ornaments there, and they also could put a crease in it. They can do it so it cuts all the way through, but they can also do it so it just puts a crease in it, and that's how they make gift bags. So one person actually started the process of putting together a gift bag, and he's putting in all the different folds, and it was impressive, just that whole process of seeing the gift bag come to life. From there, we were brought to the point where we could see people getting the gift bags together to be packaged so they could be exported out. They export nearly 100% of everything they make. It doesn't stay in India. It gets sent to other places like the United States and gets sold there. The only reason I'm saying nearly 100% instead of completely is because they have their own little shop. And they get fancy with the paper too. There's lots of paper that has glitter on it, which is the craft herpes, but my home's already infested. There's also papers that they make with flowers and grass in them. They're only the handmade papers that get that. The machine paper is just plain boring, but they can do fancy stuff with the handmade paper, and apparently the handmade paper is better quality. It holds up better over time. They'll also make the paper into more sturdier items, so we could see there was a paper frame being made, and it was super sturdy. They also make boxes, and the boxes are super sturdy. You wouldn't be able to tell that it was made out of paper. We were brought to the machine a little bit later on where they turn the cotton scraps into like even more scrappy to become the pulp. They used to get all their fabric scraps for free, and their fabric scraps are waste products from the t-shirt companies. When the t-shirts companies make the t-shirts, they have leftover fabric, so they sell that fabric to this company. It used to be free, but they end up selling it now. But yeah, there's a lot of cotton, and you could see it goes right. It's kind of like a reverse Carter. Maybe it's, in a way, it might be like a cotton gin, where it separates the seeds from the actual cotton, except this cotton was already woven and processed and whatnot, and it's just ripping it up now. Shredder. It's a shredder. After that, they led us to the shop, which I was excited because I was curious to see what I would find, and I did find some amazing paper. I'm not going to go into too much detail of the paper here because I do want to have a video where I just show off everything I got in India. But I did see these and I knew they were my thing. There's 6 of them here. So I thought like, ooh, Christmas gifts. Yeah. These are the gift cards that will go with the gifts. And mint green, that's my color, yeah? And then I got a bunch of other papers. But then, once again, they only accepted cash. They didn't accept card. And the same lady who paid for the tile also took care of the paper for me. And it's like, thank you very much. I'm really lucky to be having people look out for me here. The fact that I didn't have enough cash and like the cash just flew out once I actually started using it was just incredibly annoying. Over half the group was in the same boat as me though. When we left the paper shop, we ended up driving back to the hotel, but on the way to the hotel, we had to stop by the medical shop for me to get pads. And then we also had to stop by an ATM. The medical shop did not accept cards. So the tour guide ended up going out with me and ended up buying the pads for me. It looked like one of the many shops where you just go up to the counter and they get the thing for you. So I just had to explain what it was. I got 6 pads in the thing. And it was extra large, so it should be enough for what I need at this point. Especially if I combine it with the tampons that I have left. One of the other people came out because she was looking for cough drops or something for a sore throat. I don't know if she found what she was looking for. That was in and out. On craft tour trips, I am more likely to be in a hotel bubble. But at least I can say I did something that the locals would have to do that was outside tourist bubble. And then we all got to the ATM. I first went to the ATM. It just wasn't working for me. The fillet for our bus ended up coming down and making sure that this group of women were safe by the ATMs. They found 2 different ATM brands next to each other and I went to one of them and I thought it was like some sort of rewards program. It was difficult, but I found out I had to put my card in. I tried to take out the amount I wanted and it had a limit that was lower than the amount that I wanted. The amount that was the limit was the amount that was close to the amount I was going to take out anyway. So at least I now know that I have cash for the market tomorrow. We have plans to go to a market. I don't know how much I plan on buying from the market. We're going to a spice market. I think I am swayed to maybe buy some spices tomorrow, or if they have yarn, which is something that we have seen yarn shops, but we've never stopped by yarn shops. But if I see yarn tomorrow, I'll buy yarn. But the only ones guaranteed are the flower and the spice markets. We're also going to see the puppeteer tomorrow, and I want to make sure I have enough money for the puppet. I think the puppeteer is also going to be a cash only type of deal. But yeah, I did feel a little bit more relieved once I got to cash. Once I got back to the hotel, I was able to get set up again, and I made my way to the bakery. I've been wanting to make my way to the bakery for a couple days now, but I haven't made it there until today because I kept wanting to go after it was closed. I also did want to get a pair of pants. I was told while I was looking in the shop that sold the hand block fabric clothing that the pants that someone else was wearing was found in the hotel. I was like, you know what? It only cost her like $5. So I might as well give that a shot. So after I went to the bakery, I got 4 cookies. I do always want to make sure I have some sort of little snack that's around, and I did finish my other snack today. I ended up walking to the shop. I went looking for some pants. I left with some silk cotton pajamas. The man did a very good job upselling me because the silk cotton pajama did have pants with them, and it's a bold design. I'm worried if I bleed through my pants, I'm likely to need another pair of pants that will make it harder to see any blood stains that come about. So I ended up getting a pair of red patterned pants with the silk pajamas. And there was a shirt, and it's like, well, you could wear separates. You could sometimes wear the shirt by itself, you can wear the pants by itself, or you can wear them together. And that's what sold me. I could wear the pants by itself here, and it would also be something that I would wear at home because I do spend a lot more time in my pajamas than I used to, and it'd be nice to wear some that feel put together. So after I went back up, dropped that off in my room, and I came back down, I ended up having dinner at the buffet again. I tried some more Indian foods. I had some rice, and I think I had a paneer, and they have these cheese balls and these crunchy triangular things. And I saw shortly before I got dessert that the people that I talked to last night in the buffet, the shooters from India, they were there again tonight. So when I got dessert, I said hello and asked if I could join them again, and we had a nice little conversation. Yeah, they are down in Delhi for training. They also explained how the license plates work in India, so the numbers of the license plate explain a lot more than the numbers in the US license plates do. Like the first 2 are like the state, and then the next 2 numbers are the region or the district within it. They're license plates are relatively plain compared to what you see in the United States, where they actually have the signs on it. I also heard about their families, and they're explaining differences they see in India. There was one person who, up until today, I had assumed was an immigrant into India because she looks more like Chinese than she does Indian, or like more East Asian is probably how I would describe it. But the guy's like, yeah, there's some people in the east of India, because they're really close to China, there's more blending between the Chinese and Indian cultures, and it's almost like culture all their own. And I was like, oh yeah, because India and China share a border. So that, I think, could explain why I'm seeing so many more like East Asian looking people here, in addition to the Indian. My assumption when I saw that was that they're immigrants, but no, I guess they're not necessarily immigrants. But yeah, that's pretty much been my day. I've pretty much spent the rest of it talking to you guys here. The main takeaways I have here is I definitely have ideas about money that I have not confronted in myself that need to be confronted. Because I did find it very hard to rely on other people today when it came to financial requests. But I'm grateful that they got me out of that jam. But also, when I think of how much the money was, if I translate it back to United States dollars, when I look at the amount of how much that costs, the amount of money that I did not have the cash for, that I would have, if I had my card, no problem paying with it. And if I was in the States and I saw like those prices, wouldn't even blink an eye. I'd go like, oh yeah, totally reasonable, let me just pay that. And then to go from not having that small amount of money to pay the cash, and then going down from lunch to see someone who's literally begging in the streets outside the restaurant for money. She's literally holding a coin in her hand and asking for money. We ended up saying no because we've been told do not interact. It really puts into stark perspective for me just how poor the poverty is in some of these places in the world, which I always knew about it intellectually, but it wasn't something that I had seen with my own eyes before. I think the closest I've ever seen this before was in Ecuador, when I visited someone home up in the mountains and they all lived in the same room. I don't know how true this is or not, but I do remember people saying that the majority of the people in the world live on only $2 a day. I don't know how true that is anymore. That's not a lot of money to spend at all. The fact that I also found myself having trouble borrowing money from others illustrates for me just how much I expected to not have a community, but I know going forward that there is a community out there, and I need to be more accepting of the community if I want to feel the benefits of it. Again, I'm incredibly grateful for the tour guide and the other ladies in the group looking out for me today and helping me enjoy my day here in India. So we're going to have a late start tomorrow. Then we're going to be going to the market. Also, we're going to see the puppet guy, and I'm really excited to see the puppet guy. Yeah, that was today's video.
One set of the food.
They put every paper is metal sheet. Only for the press. So to make it equal. To make it equal and to make it clean.
ये जो है कोई भी प्रोडक्ट बनने से पहले डाई लगेगा। ये हैंगिंग Yeah, this die cutting. This is for paper bags. So easy to fold it. There is some creases here. So easy to fold it and make the bag.
और इसमें डाई लगती है।
ये die.
This is for the die.
ये काट रहा है। ये काट रहा है। ये जस्ट में समझ में आएगा। जस्ट प्लेन है ये वो डाई कटा है। This is church.
Church. Bye.